doing a ride spot check tonight. Any alcohol for you at all?
No.
A question that's perhaps quite innocuous if you're sober. But for visible minorities, interaction with police can be a minefield.
I have people around me, especially men, they've been stopped while driving in their life 30, 40 times. They're not criminals. They don't have any criminal record. So just the everyday reality of a black person that drives.
She's worried about how police will use their new powers.
Every time a person of color is stopped for no reason, it leaves a trace. It's not just the incident in itself. It's sometimes the violence of those incidents.
Did you smoke weed?
A study based on data collected by Ottawa police found officers disproportionately pulled over people they perceived as Middle Eastern and Black, something advocates fear will get worse under the new law.
It's yet another tool in the police arsenal that is not based on any requirement that the police officer have a suspicion that a person has done anything wrong at all.
Ottawa isn't blind to those concerns. That's why the Senate tacked on an amendment requiring the government to report back in 3 years on whether visible minorities are being disproportionately targeted.
The difficulty here will be to have reliable data. It's not easy to have police officers report on why they stopped someone, or is the person from a racial minority or not.
Anything to drink today?
Police say they need more tools to detect impaired driving. It's not about violating people's rights, they say, but about saving lives.
If you're operating a motor vehicle on the road, I feel that it's reasonable that there would be an expectation that you not have alcohol and drugs in your body. And so to expect somebody to have to prove that, I don't see that as being overreaching necessarily.
As police exercise those new powers, many will be watching to see how they're applied and to whom. Jayla Bernstein, CBC News, Montreal.
So the new law is controversial, but will it be effective in reducing the number of impaired drivers? Canada has one of the highest rates of driving deaths linked to alcohol in the developed world, and advocates say it's partly due to the lack of so-called mandatory breath tests. In fact, many countries already have mandatory testing programs in place. After Australia first introduced it in the late 70s, the number of deaths on the road dropped by 20%. In Switzerland, where mandatory screening started in 2005, drivers testing positive for alcohol fell from about 25% to about 7%. Here in Canada, impaired driving has steadily decreased over the past 3 decades, but it still remains one of the most common criminal offenses today. And how often people drink and drive seems to depend on where you live. Less than a third of the population live in rural Canada, for example, but account for more than half of all impaired drivers reported by police last year and represent 2/3 of cases of impaired driving causing death. That's likely because more people in rural areas have cars, have to drive longer distances, and don't have easy access to transit.